Nobody sets out to build a business by shouting at a trade deal on camera, but that's basically what happened at Diddley Squat. When the UK signed its free trade agreement with Australia, the deal opened the door to Australian beef and lamb entering the country under a rising quota, no tariffs standing in the way. British farmers, already stripped of their EU subsidies post-Brexit, saw it as one more squeeze. Jeremy Clarkson, who by then had spent a couple of years learning exactly how thin farming margins really are, said what a lot of farmers were already thinking. Cheap imports were coming, and he wasn't going to compete with them on price, so he didn't try to. Here's the part most people miss. Diddley Squat wasn't built as a cattle farm. When Clarkson bought the land back in 2008, it was arable, wheat, barley, rapeseed, farmed quietly on contract by a local villager for over a decade while Clarkson barely touched it. It was only when that contractor retired that Clarkson took the farm on himself. Sheep came first, mostly because the fields needed grazing and sheep don't ask for much beyond a fence and a bit of patience. Cattle were a different decision entirely, and they arrived only once the trade deal gave him a reason to stop growing crops and start growing an argument. None of it would have gone anywhere without the person standing next to him doing the actual work. Kaleb Cooper grew up farming this exact stretch of the Cotswolds. He was already running his own contracting business in the area before Clarkson ever needed him, and he'd worked Diddley Squat's land before the cameras arrived. He's the reason the comedy of the show works at all. A 20-something who knows more about livestock instinctively than Clarkson will ever learn from a manual, paired with a multimillionaire who once compared the price of a cow to the price of a used car. But underneath the odd couple routine sits something simpler. Cooper is the one who actually knows when a field is ready, when a cow is in trouble, when an idea Clarkson's excited about is going to fail before it starts. Every business decision that worked on this farm passed through Cooper first, whether Clarkson admits that on camera or not. That argument needed a product behind it. And this is where the story stops being about ego and starts being about something closer to genuine strategy. Clarkson picked native breed cattle over the bigger, leaner continental breeds that dominate commercial beef. On paper that looks sentimental. It isn't. Continental cattle are built for the drier, steadier climates of mainland Europe, and they often need grain and supplementary feed to finish well. Native British breeds finish on grass alone, because wet, temperate British pasture is exactly the environment they were shaped by. No feedlots, no imported soya, just rain, time, and a field. And the flavor difference that comes with grass-finished native beef, the marbling chefs actually want now, isn't marketing spin. It's chemistry. Clarkson wasn't just picking a breed. He was picking the one argument the supermarkets genuinely can't undercut on price alone. Somewhere in the middle of building that argument, farming reminded him it doesn't take instructions from anyone, however famous. Bovine TB moved through herds across the Cotswolds and the West Country during this period, and Diddley Squat wasn't spared. It's the disease every livestock farmer dreads because there's no negotiating with it. Infected animals are slaughtered, movements get frozen, and years of careful breeding can disappear in a single test result. Clarkson filmed it anyway. He didn't cut the disease outbreaks, or the years the numbers came in worse than expected, or the moments the farm's finances swung from a laughably small profit to a loss that would frighten a normal investor. Farming, it turns out, rewards rainfall and timing far more than it rewards intention or money. And that's precisely the bit worth sitting with for a second because most of us have felt some version of it. You commit to something you don't fully understand. You get it wrong in public, and the honest thing to do is admit it rather than dress it up. That's not a farming story. That's most people's first year at anything that actually matters to them. Before any of that mechanics conversation is worth having, though, there's a fight that almost never gets mentioned when people talk about how well this business has done. And it explains a lot about why Clarkson leans so hard on being loud rather than diplomatic. The farm shop itself nearly didn't survive its own planning permission. When word got out about what Clarkson was building, and the queues of visitors started backing up traffic into the village of Chadlington, the local council pushed back hard on the scale of it. Restrictions on parking, restrictions on opening days, months of applications and objections before anything was settled. It's the kind of quiet bureaucratic grind that ends a lot of small farm diversification projects before they ever open, because most farmers don't have a camera crew documenting the process or the profile to make a council meeting national news. Clarkson did, and every argument he lost or won in that process became content, which meant the fight for planning permission ended up advertising the shop it was trying to restrict. If you've ever tried to get a simple thing past a local authority, an extension, a change of use, a market stall, you already know that feeling. The paperwork outlasts the patience. The difference here is that the paperwork became part of the story instead of killing it quietly in a filing cabinet. Which brings us to the actual business mechanics, because this is where a farming diversification quietly turned into something closer to a functioning company. Most British beef travels a long chain before it reaches a plate, farmer to processor to distributor to supermarket to you, and at every stop, a margin gets taken out before it ever reaches the person who spent 2 years actually growing the animal. It's an arrangement that has slowly worn down small farms for a generation, and it's the exact thing Clarkson had been complaining about since the trade deal first landed. His model skips almost all of it. The cattle are reared on the farm, then sold through 2 routes he built specifically to avoid ever handing the beef to a supermarket buyer: the diddly squat farm shop and the farmer's dog, the pub he opened to serve food made almost entirely from what's grown or reared on site. That's a completely different business to what a supermarket runs. A supermarket competes on price, stacking identical shrink-wrapped packages under fluorescent lighting. Clarkson is selling something a price tag can't replicate. Provenance you've watched unfold on screen for years, disasters included. No marketing department, however well-funded, can manufacture that kind of trust from scratch. You either earn it in public, mistakes and all, or you don't have it. And it isn't just the beef people are buying into. The same logic runs through everything else on those shelves. The eggs, the honey, the milk from the on-site dispenser, all priced well above what the equivalent costs in a supermarket aisle, on a spreadsheet that looks like bad value. In practice, people happily pay it, because what they're actually buying is the version of that product they trust, from a place they've watched struggle to make it work. It's the same reason someone will drive an hour out of their way for a jar of honey they could buy closer to home for half the price. The product isn't really the product. The trust is the product, and trust doesn't come with a discount code. It also means the shop and the pub now need more beef than Clarkson's own small herd can reliably supply, especially in a bad year. So the farm now works with a handful of neighboring producers to keep the shelves and the kitchen stocked, which means Clarkson's beef business isn't just profiting Clarkson anymore. It's become a guaranteed buyer at a fair price with no supermarket contract department involved, which, in British farming right now, is close to the rarest thing going. Industry estimates now put the value built around that cattle operation, the herd, the shop, the pub revenue, the brand recognition no competitor can simply buy, somewhere around £6 million. And the credibility behind it earned Diddly Squat's pub official partner status in Great British Beef Week, a campaign celebrating exactly the kind of local butchers and farm shops Clarkson had spent years learning to become one of. So here's the actual shape of the story, stripped back to what it really is. He complained about a trade deal because he was angry, not because he had a plan. That anger led him to buy cattle he didn't understand, pick a breed for reasons that turned out to be genuinely sound, build 2 businesses specifically designed to avoid ever selling through a supermarket, and film every disaster along the way instead of hiding them, which is precisely what made the eventual product believable. None of that was strategy on day one. It became strategy because he refused to stop and refused to lie about what was actually happening while he didn't. That's rarely how businesses are supposed to get built. It's often how the honest ones actually do. If you found this one interesting, there's a whole other side to how Diddly Squat actually makes its money, and it's just as strange as this one. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe my channel.